Was it nerve-wracking, the process? Well, yeah, man, it was, it's overwhelming. It's a lot. There's so much to wrangle when you're directing a feature film. I've directed a few short projects. I've produced quite a bit. I've been in a lot of projects as an actor, so I understand the process, but directing a feature-length film was it was a challenge. It was great. It was obviously wonderful, but man, oh man, it's hard. It's a lot of work. I went into it knowing that it was going to be challenging, but yeah, man, it was tough. But we got it done, and here we are. And it's just an amazing feeling to be with these people and here at the Seattle Film Summit. It's not playtime, you know. I need to get the best performance out of her, but because we've been familiar with the story for quite a while, we were able to do a lot of work off set. You know, on the day when you're on set, everything is moving very, very fast. So you have very little time to do things. So we did a lot of preparation before we hit the set, and Angela was mostly pretty good at listening and taking my direction. No, she was amazing the whole time, and it was like, it's definitely my favorite. I'm not going to take any credit for this, maybe just a little, but definitely I think some of the best work I've seen her do is in the Parish. So and I think it's because we prepared.
David and I started Mighty Tripod Productions years after we'd already been producing. We'd been producing and we had been teaching for years. And so when we launched Mighty Tripod Productions, we were like, well, it's time to make this legit. And then when we started Mighty Tripod Acting Studio, same thing. We finally had a location. And I actually met Sanae before she was one of my students. Sanae came and saw our first feature film, Paralytic, which is now Narco Hitman. Dave and I are both leads in it, but we were co-producers with our writer-director, Joey Johnson. And her parents, Tammy and Sean Loutsis, came to SIF. We got into SIF, which was huge. And she came up and introduced herself to me, and we were just saying, we think she might have been 11 or 12. What did we decide? I should know when it was.
Just say 11 and a half.
She was 11 and a half, a really strong 11 and a half. And she came up to me, introduced herself, and I said, sweetie, you want to come up on the red carpet with me? She's like, and she was so humble and wonderful and just sweet and genuine, and I'll never forget that moment. We took some photos. And I gave my number or my card to her parents and said, you know, if she's really interested in acting, I'd love to work with her. So I became her private coach, and she's attended classes. And so when we talked to our friend, the writer, Todd Downing of the Parish, I asked him to rewrite the daughter role because it was actually written as an 8-year-old, so much younger. I said, I know who I want to play my daughter. And I would love it if we can make it a teenager, which I think will be better for the story, to have a whole nother strong female lead, and also for the demographic, so teens would want to come see this strong teenage girl in this movie, and because I wanted to cast Sanae. So yes, I am beyond thrilled not only to have one of my students and someone who I met as I'll put that in quotes, fan first, who now has I'm her fan now. She has her own career. And then to work with David as my director, I knew when I asked Todd, my friend, the writer, Todd Downing, I said, are you okay if David can direct? I think I'll feel my safest with him because it's a pretty brutal journey that my character goes through. And so, yes, David's right in that I'll agree. This is probably some of my strongest work because Dave and I work really well together. We've been married almost, how long?
Well,
18?
Altogether, I've been telling people it's like 20. It's almost 20.
20
now.
years. Oh, God. Almost 20. You see that attitude he has to it? But yes. So long tail on that kite there, David. But thank you for that question. I would say that to be able to work with my husband and work with one of my students who is now also a friend, can't beat it.
Yeah, I feel like I probably learned more from you than you did from me, just because you do have a lot more experience, but I definitely did learn a lot in this film and acting in it, and it was like so fun to do with you. And now I feel like you having played my mom, you kind of sometimes feel like my mom. Like, no offense, Mom. Like, you're still obviously my biological mother, but like I feel like we have a better and more awesome connection because of that movie and our roles in it.
Yeah, I think us working together, it was great because we worked a little before getting on set, but a lot of it was really organic, what we brought to set. And what's great about Sanae is she just really, truly lives in that moment. So we were able to just feed off of each other and have fun, and David would let us play, and there's a great scene at the dinner table. I don't think I'm doing any spoilers, and her character drops a little fart. You know, and it's this great, cute mother-daughter moment, and Sanae and I were just cracking up about it. I was like, how do we do this scene? And then to work with Bill, when it was scenes with me and Bill and Sanae, and we, obviously, Bill doesn't live in town, and he's a big deal, and for us to be able to work with him also taught me a lot. Like, look how amazing and humble this young teen is, working with this horror movie icon. And I was in awe of how she interacted with him. So I actually did learn from her that I was like, okay, don't freak out because I'm working with Bill. Don't freak out. So I think we all kind of just fed off of each other. It was a really giving set.
It was wonderful to play a man of the cloth in the parish because I've known hundreds and hundreds of ministers. I had a 14-year stage career before I started doing film. And I toured to many hundreds of churches with performances. And I've talked to these guys, and I've had dinner with them, and I've heard more than one minister talk about their weariness, their pain, about the burden of people always thinking that you know things that they don't, when actually they don't know anymore, that your faith is greater than other people's, when actually they're struggling just like you. So I tried to bring all of that to Father Felix. I usually play people whose malevolence is turned outward towards everyone else, and Father Felix, in some ways, because he's faced evil and knows he really can't do a damn thing about it, except in certain isolated instances when God gives him the opportunity, the malevolence is turned inward toward himself somewhat, because he knows that there's great evil in the world and there's very little that he can do about it, just like all of us. So he has a certain weariness about him. And that was nice. Yeah, it was quite nice. In another movie, he would have picked up a knife and hacked you guys up. Right. And it was refreshing that he didn't. In addition to not having blood all over me at 3 a.m, which, yeah, it's not as exciting as it always sounds.
Well, Audrey, throughout the film, is just really struggling, just kind of almost like keeping it together, but just because she doesn't want to be there so much. And with her father's loss and passing away, that really strains her a lot. And then her mother isn't really helping until by the end of the film, they have a great connection. And Audrey, I think, is more appreciative of her mother. And I can say that I can relate to that because I feel like I appreciated my actual mother more by the end of the film because it is so realistic but still not being realistic. Like, it just takes situations from real life and makes it more interesting, but it's still realistic, so.
I think that this is a unusual film in that it's a horror, supernatural, thriller film that you can watch with your kids and talk to them afterwards about grief and loss. If anyone who's watching has had any type of loss or any type of mourning or grief, they're really going to relate to Liz and they're going to relate to Audrey. Yeah, I think the message of the movie is resilience, moving past grief, agency, taking control. Ultimately, you have to decide that you've grieved enough and you're going to move on and take some action. Yeah, nobody tells you how to deal with death. There's no rule book, and we're very, very bad in our Western society at dealing with it, much worse than we used to be. We don't talk about it, and people are supposed to be back to work 2 days later and not talk about it ever again until the anniversary, when somebody will say, "How you doing? Thoughts and prayers are with you." You know, it's bullshit, the way that we deal with death. It's a complete denial of what we as humans go through. And this movie gets into that. And there's also a horror and supernatural element and a really scary as hell nun. So all of those things together make it unusual. It's a classy thriller. I think that people are really going to like it.